Hello and welcome to the Praying Wife podcast. I'm your host, Corain Cash, and on today's episode, I'm as always excited to have joining with me today my wonderful, handsome husband of almost 15 years, Mr. Ronnie Cash.
Hello, here I am.
Welcome. So, on today's episode, we actually, entered into a conversation and we were just talking about the little things when we first started dating and how a lot of those things sometimes can get lost when you're approaching, for us, for almost 15 years. For some people, you might be approaching 7 years and you're finding yourself just kind of not having the same kind of conversations that you had with your spouse before. And so we wanted to do an episode, and my husband actually came up with the wonderful title, which I think is amazing, and he called it Getting Back to Basics. So, and I'll let you kind of tell our audience what was going through your mind.
Well, right now, me and my lovely wife are doing a marriage couples class at our church. And the funny thing is, sometimes you be like, oh, if you tell someone that you're doing a couples thing, they think, oh, you're doing therapy? Are you doing counseling? Are you guys okay? And, and yeah, I think we were in a pretty good place when we started. We're probably even better now. I would encourage every married couple to probably every once in a while go through, if they have something at their local church or some kind of marriage seminar, probably do that. And it was interesting because they were talking about some things that we covered even in our premarital counseling that we did at our church.
Yes.
And it was just interesting that it was some of the same stuff we were supposed to be thinking about before we got married. And we're like, okay, wow, this is still stuff to consider. Because, sometimes you will get married and you think, okay, I did it. I'm done. I've accomplished. I've won the race. For a guy, it's like, oh, he's won the prize. It's done. The work is over. But for sure, the work is just beginning. And for us, it's like, for as long as we've been married, 15 years almost, sometimes the things that we used to consider, even when we were first dating, sometimes, you're thinking more about, okay, what am I doing to make sure I don't either offend this person, or even when you're trying to do things for each other, okay, well, I wonder what she likes in this, or and you're paying attention to these things. But as you go along, and familiarity is what occurs, you start to be like, oh well,
I don't need to open that door
and
anymore.
you stop worrying about those things that you're doing the things for the person that you love, or you say you love. So
that is so true, because I know a lot of times you may hear, and because it is true, that don't forget to date your spouse. Like, don't neglect those things just because you got the ring now and, you said your I do's and now you're living together. The purpose of dating isn't just to win the prize. Like you said, win the prize of saying, okay, let's get married. So now that we're married, we can't do it anymore. It's literally to continue to build a relationship. It's building that relationship with your, at that time, soon to be spouse. And now that they're actually your spouse now, it's even more important that you continue to date.
This is true.
And so, one of those things I think when we talk about back to the basics is date. Continue to date, with or without kids. If you have no children, 2 children, 20 children, remember, the kids are going to grow up. They are their own people. They will grow up and they will leave the home. And it will just be you and that spouse you said, I do to. And the worst thing, and I know, if we look at statistics, this is really something that's prevalent where, after the house is empty, and the spouses are now empty nesters, they call them, the divorce rate kind of goes higher. Because in that time, you've spent so many, hours and weeks and just investment and care and worry about the kids that your relationship has now suffered or even been completely depleted. And now you look and you're like, who is this person that I'm married to? Like, I have to be stuck in a house with them now. And it's usually because, we, not to say we don't put the effort in, but I think we forget the basics.
Yeah, for sure, when it comes to marriages where there are kids involved, it's definitely got to be number one, a focus point that you try to go out and do things together as a couple without the kids, you know what I mean? And you have to actually teach your kids that, hey, mommy and daddy have a relationship with each other that happened before you guys. That's the reason you guys are here in the first place. So
That's right.
that needs to be nurtured and continue to be nurtured. But I even think for the couples without kids, it's even important for them to think about it now, because if you're not dealing with the whole kids situation, if you're just two married couple and it's just you guys, you could get into the whole workaholic thing where, because because when it's not that, a lot of times people don't have kids because they say, oh, I want to focus on my career now. And
Right.
you can focus. You could have two hustleaholics. You have the two hustlers who trying to make it, trying to do big things and have careers, which is great. But sometimes the actual relationship with each other can get lost in that process too, where they spending more hours at work, or spending more hours, just trying to, make a living, and not realizing that, the experiences with your spouse is a part of that living that you need to focus on as well. I mean, in the culture we live in now, it's hustle, hustle all day and, grind all day, and it's like no rest or no time for what I consider some of the finer things in life. Some of the experiences is going to come from spending time with the one you love.
So very true. So very true. And, my husband mentioned we are taking this class, and it's always a great reminder of some of the just simple things that we can oftentimes forget or take for granted, just because, we're living with each other every single day. We're experiencing life together every single day. So, I mean, just some common courtesy things of just remembering to be nice, like remembering to say thank you for the things that now we take for granted, because it's almost like, I expect you to do that. I expect you to care for the kids. I expect you to make me breakfast. I expect you to go take out the trash. And yes, there's levels of expectations, and I actually think expectations was one of the chapters in the book, because the class actually came with the book. But they don't have to. Like, you have to remember, they're still their own person, and everything that they're doing, they're doing it out of love. They're doing it out of respect, and we cannot ever take for granted our spouse. Don't take for granted the little things that they're doing for you. Don't take for granted the moments that you have together, with or without kids, because those are things that'll go a long way. And I think oftentimes we just let them slip by. We do subconsciously or unconsciously or whatever it is, but we take it for granted. And so it's like, don't forget the gratitude. Don't forget the text message, or a hug before your spouse goes out the door for work, or, just checking in on them in the middle of the day. How are you doing? How is your day? Just small things like that.
Yeah, I mean, like I always tell the kids, especially when it comes to, like, if I'm going around the house and I'm finding a candy wrapper here, a chip bag there, an empty box of something there, and I'm like, hey guys, they say there's no maid and no butler in this house. I say, you got to clean up after yourselves, and you got to, because sometimes they come to expect that, okay, if I'm not doing that, daddy and mommy will do that. But then, we teaching them to honor the house and honor, each other by, taking care of those things. And that's the same way with your spouse you should do, because even as they're doing those things for you, they're honoring you, and you should honor them with the gratitude and show that that appreciation back towards them. In this house, we're both busy people. We both have a lot of things going on. So anytime we get to do things for each other, it's a blessing, and we gotta show each other that we're blessed by what they're doing for us, because I mean, they taking time out of their day, their busy schedules, to do these things, and we always appreciate those things. So for sure.
Yeah. And then, another one of the chapters too in the book, and it's really some great stuff, but it talks about conflict, and there's one like on communication. And it's interesting because it also goes through, ask certain questions. Some of them I was, happy to say, oh no, like we don't deal, not to say we don't deal with that as an issue, but it was good to see that we were in a good place. But then there were other questions that really made me pause and be like, well, yep, that is something definitely that either one of us or both of us could work on and should work on. It's funny when you in your mind might think your relationship with your spouse is at a certain point, but if someone from the outside were just to come and ask basic questions, simple questions or something like that, you'll realize, wait a minute, what's going on? or wait, that's what you were thinking? Or, that like, oh, I didn't realize that was a problem. And so it's very important too that you always have an open line of communication.
Yeah, like you said, hearing certain things that they were discussing, like, oh, Because I think as you get comfortable around each other, sometimes you get comfortable with a certain behavior, or
Ah,
you just come to
yes. You just
that's
accept it.
normal. You tolerate it, and it becomes like it's normal. I mean, it's been happening for years. I think even with my mom and dad, when I saw them, certain things that would go on, like if my dad would do something or say something or act a certain way, my mom was just shrug her shoulders and let it, but I'm pretty sure it may have hurt her, and vice versa with both of them. Certain things, certain behaviors we pick up over time, and if they're not addressed and they're not say, hey, if the person that gets offended say, hey, that offended me, or hey, that hurt me, it just left, and the person who made the offense is just thinking, okay, it was cool, I could just act this way and it's all fine. But going through the different things that we've been learning recently, and it's like, oh wow, and we have to stop and take check and figure out, okay, is this thing that I'm doing bothering you, or is this way if I behave a certain way in this moment, is that bothering you?
Right.
Really, really assess yourself. And we have, I don't want to say too much about it because it's for our group, but they always tell you to not criticize the person. Talk about yourself, as in talk about what's going on with you, because this is really the first way you should look at anything. Look within, look within to yourself.
Look inward. Okay, so and then even two things there, but one before I forget, because you did make a point of the circle, and it's so important even during or especially during times of conflict, instead of it really being a you, like you're the problem, you always do this, you always focus it on an I. Don't come out of the gate finger pointing on, it's really what it is. It's more of a, I feel this way when this happens. I think, this, I that. You don't ever want to, just point blame, be like, you're always doing this and this is it, because it presents a defensive, like it's you come in automatically and your spouse is defensive and you won't get as many answers that way. But even back to what you're saying, yes, it's important that you communicate. You have to continue to open up the lines of communication in your marriage. And I'm so happy that, we've started almost of this kind of like a tradition thing. My husband does it more than I do, but like going for walks. Not only is it like good for both of our healths, but it's really a time where we can stop and kind of, well, not stop, we're walking, but talk to each other about, how is your day? And sometimes, the little one, she's with us and she wants to either, just be in her stroller or ride her bike. But at least it's that time where we are talking to each other. Because, if we think about it, I have a long day, he has a long day. By the time our long days are done, now the kids are home from school. And now the kids want to talk to us about their day. And then we're dealing with homework. And now, it's time for dinner. And now it's time for bath and time to put everyone to bed. And then, hey, let's get some more work done. And if you think about that, and then it's sleep time and the day starts all over again. And it happens for a lot of us, if we're honest, especially in today's society where, it's like work, work, work. And the problem is it's little time for us to communicate. So finding ways where you can have that, find that time just with your spouse where you're just, hey, how are you?
Yeah,
how are you doing, right? Like, how are you feeling? Are we still good? Is there something that I'm doing that you don't necessarily like? Like, don't be afraid to have those candid conversations.
Yeah, definitely. The tough conversations, they have to be had. That's like another part of the communication we were dealing with the conflict.
Conflict, yeah.
People always say, oh, conflict is bad, it's always going to end negatively. It could, if you don't have the skill set or the tools, you need to communicate properly and to say what you want to say without doing it in a negative way and a criticizing way. Yes, it could, but it also could reap a whole bunch of benefits. It also could be what saves a marriage or what resurrects a marriage that was almost dead. It could very much, change and change the whole direction of what you and your spouse's relationship is going through. And for sure, that's the positive side of conflicts. People always used to say, like, if you're not having arguments, then you're not growing. This is true, because if everyone's just sitting on how they feel and they're just mum's the word, or they're just just letting it lie. Like I said before, no one knows what they're doing, if it's wrong or whatever. So the conflict has to happen. The conversations have to happen.
Yeah, and we know this very well from experience. We went through something that was a huge conflict, but I would say that we have made it through that even stronger. And I think that's a part of what you were just saying. Like, if you're not arguing, you're not, and I don't like to say arguing, but if you're not facing conflict, you're not growing. Like conflict is definitely one of those ways that you can grow. So look at it as an opportunity. Don't look at it as, oh, we're always in, fights or anything like that. Try to get to the root of, if you are, in a marriage where you're constantly fighting each other, like what is the root of that problem? What is really and it might take you taking a couple of steps back, all the way back, to the do you even like me? Like, what did I do? Was there a point, it may have been weeks ago, years ago even, of something I may have said, something I may have done, that may have offended you? But all that goes back to not being afraid to have tough conversations and calm conversations.
Right. I was just gonna when you were done, I was gonna say that basically you have to sit down with your spouse and be like, okay, I want to have this conversation, but let's lay some ground rules. We're not gonna raise our voices.
No,
We're not
no
gonna
shouting.
we're gonna say our pieces. Everyone's gonna listen, not interrupting, not trying to get defensive and trying to attack one point of the whole conversation that our significant other is trying to communicate. We're gonna listen to the whole thing, and then we'll, basically go back and forth until we work our way through the conflict.
Yeah.
Definitely rules have to be laid. And I mean, it doesn't matter how old you get, when it gets to something, especially if it's a touchy subject, you still will turn into a little child. You grown adults will act like little kids, get petty.
Oh yeah.
And
petty street is always filled.
For sure.
The roads are filled like a Times Square. And yeah, no, it's true. And laying those ground rules, number one, and most importantly, following the ground rules, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's easy to say, hey, we're not going to do this, we're not going to do that. And then the conflict starts and the argument starts and it's something else.
Or you're laying the ground rules, but you're really saying, this is the rules for you. I can do what I want to do, but this is your rules. So you don't criticize me and whatever, but I could say it back to you. I could criticize you.
Exactly. Know that the rules are for everyone. They're house rules. You have to follow, both of you would have to follow the same exact rules. And I think it's very important. Like you said, no shouting, no name calling, absolutely none. You don't want to ever be in a position where you're being disrespectful verbally to your spouse.
No.
Even if it's something that you guys are used to, I would encourage you to quit it right now. You should never, ever, ever, ever be disrespectful to your spouse, and that's husband or wife. Because your words, literally, as the Bible says, your words can kill.
Yeah.
Right? Your words, and they're once spoken, you can't even put them back into any bottle. They have been spoken. So you want to be very careful about what you choose to say, and you want to, as the Bible again says, in your anger, sin not. It didn't say you couldn't be angry. It said be calm. Almost like yes, you can be upset about a problem, but be adultish enough. Yes, I'm going to say that. Be adultish enough. Sometimes it's hard for us to hear that.
Adulting is hard.
It is. It's especially when you think or know you are in the right in this particular situation. It's very hard to give up your right to be calm. And, I think we talked about that too. I think it was with forgiveness. And it's one of the things is because we feel like we're just letting the other partner get away with stuff. And that makes it hard for us to forgive. That makes it hard for us to be calm. That makes it hard for us to let go of little things. It's like, no, but they're going to get away with it.
Yeah, you're definitely not letting them get away with it,
Right.
But you're choosing to forgive them. It's another choice, just like love is a choice, You chose to love, if you're operating in feelings, then it's definitely not going to last. So it's choice you're making every day or every week, every month, to continue to love. And also when it comes to forgiveness, when that needs to be something you give to your spouse, you choose to give it to them, and definitely always will be for the better. That it will always be a positive outcome when you choose forgiveness.
Yes, 100%. So, just wrapping up here, just a couple of reminders. We're saying, get back to the basics. Just go back to the point where you actually liked your spouse, where you dated. Don't forget to say little things like, thank you, I appreciate you, I'm grateful for you in my life. I'm sending little notes here and there. Just being calm during conflicts and looking at conflicts as an opportunity for you to grow. Continuing to have that open line of communication with your spouse, not being afraid to, talk about those tough topics and have those tough conversations. And just, of course, forgiveness as a choice, the same way love is a choice. It's an action. And it's saying, I'm going to do this in spite of.
Yes.
One thing I do want to leave you guys with, and this was something that we heard at another marriage conference. And again, like my husband said, continue to go to marriage seminars and training classes. Like it's good to continue to build up, to listen to different things that you hear, to continue to just hear things to help you to edify your marriage. And so, but the one thing that we did hear was, when it comes to conflict or an issue, instead of allowing this issue to come in between and to separate you and your spouse, if you're dealing with something, always look at this issue outside of your marriage, as in remove it from between you, put it in front of you. And it's something that you both will tackle together.
Yes.
So if you have a problem with whatever it is, instead of saying, my spouse has this problem, we have this problem that we are going to fight together. And that's all that we have for today.
Yes, I just want to encourage you guys to just keep working on it. I was talking with my friend, and he was like asking me, what's the secret, to being together almost 15 years? I said, work. It's work every day. I mean, like, it's just like a job. You know what I mean? You go to a job and you expect to get paid at the end of the week, but if you stay home and do nothing, you can't get paid. So as you work on your marriage, you're going to get paid with the reward of love and joy and fulfillment, and just happiness within your relationship with your spouse.
And then the one thing that we've heard recently at this church is, if you're not working on your marriage, you're working on
your divorce.
Yeah. If you're not working on your marriage, you're working on your divorce.
So work on your marriage, guys.
Work on your marriage. And I want to thank my husband, and even in this moment, just give you the thank you so much for being so awesome and for sticking with it for, the 15 years that we've been together.
Yes.
And being a wonderful husband and father, and just my honest to goodness best friend. And so I love you always and forever.
Love you too.
I can't wait for date night at the end of the month. And that's all we have. I want to thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of The Praying Wife. Remember that you can always visit us online at theprayingwife.com. You can subscribe to us on YouTube. You can also subscribe on any of the audio platforms that you would prefer, Spotify or Pandora or Google or Apple, all of the podcast systems out there. I want to thank you guys so much for your support. If you have any questions, if you need prayer at any time, you can reach out to support at theprayingwife.com or pray at theprayingwife.com. Also, you can send us a message on Facebook. We have a private group that you can request to join, or you can just like and follow the page either on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. We're all there, and know that we're always praying for you. As always, remember that you are beautiful, you are powerful, you are made in the image of God, and you are loved. God bless you, and we will see you next time.